I'm not a writer, but nearly a year ago, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and begin a weekly email newsletter. In the beginning, which was not that long ago, I didn't know really much at all about what topics to write on, who I was specifically writing to, what type of writing style would suit me, how long the entries should be, how to promote it, etc. The list went on. I really just didn't know much. I jumped in pretty blind for the most part. But what I did know, among all of those other things, is that I needed to be putting myself out there and creating more content to start building an email list. Hence, the M&M Mondays weekly newsletter. And you've probably heard, if you've listened to any other episodes, I've talked about really just the fact that I'm repurposing this across a lot of platforms. Right now, you're catching either the audio podcast version of this or the video podcast or a YouTube video version of this, but it all spawns from this weekly writing that I do, which is also a blog article on my website. So no matter what type of format you enjoy listening to, you are able to grab this content. And so that's what I've really been trying to do. But today we're talking about specifically the email newsletter version of this, which is really the bread and butter where this all started. That was the main drive for starting M&M Mondays. And I've learned a lot about writing itself over the past year almost, but I'm still sorting out a lot of things. So have I hit my sweet spot? Not at all. And do I have any confidence in what I'm doing? Only somewhat. I'm learning as I go, right? And I am certain, though, among all of these things, I am certain that writing and sharing these entries is worth the effort. It just absolutely is. And I want to encourage you towards that, whether it is writing for email or just purely doing podcast or video, finding a pillar piece of content that you can put yourself on the hook and commit to, whether you do it in a weekly fashion or whatever that cadence would be. There's a lot of benefits to it. So today I'm going to share with you 11 surprising benefits and things that I've learned by writing and publishing weekly articles for over a year and turning that into this email newsletter. Number 6 and number 11 are my absolute favorite. So stick around for that. Put this up on 1.5 times or 2 times speed if you want to kind of crank through this episode a little bit faster. It's something that I do when I really want to take in the content, but I'm short on time. And so I encourage you towards that as well. But stick around for number 6 and 11 if you want to hear my favorite ones. So jumping straight into it. Number 1, you are never going to run out of ideas. Coming up with something new to write each week is intimidating. In fact, that was one of the huge reasons why I didn't jump in to this weekly writing practice and publishing practice sooner. I didn't know what to write about and some of those other bullet points I listed, but the thing was I was so scared that even if I knew what to write about, what about the next week? What topic am I going to write the following week? And then you think 3 months from now, it's like, oh gosh, I'm going to have written literally everything that I can think to write about. What am I going to do then? I don't want to fail. I don't want to promote this thing that I'm excited about, tell them that it's coming every single week, and then not be able to produce. You know, it's intimidating. But there is something really interesting that happens in our brain when we commit to creating original work and publishing it on a continual basis. Our mind expands in some sense. And what I do is I keep an idea bank inside of Notion. It's the software that I use to pretty much power a lot of the back end of my business and also just content management and idea management, all of it. I have my weekly to-do lists in there. It kind of does everything. So yes, I'm an advocate for Notion. Make sure you check that out if you're looking for some software to use for those types of things. It's pretty cool. But I use Notion and I have an idea bank in there to store all of my thoughts. And usually when I'm doing that, I have the app on my phone, so it's super accessible no matter where I'm at in the world. Not that I travel much, but usually I'll just throw in a few bullet points along with a loosely crafted title to jog my memory when I come back to it. You know, and it's very ironic too. I've found from my experience that the more idea notes that I jot down inside of Notion, the less that I need them. And I'm sure that there's some sort of science behind this creativity phenomenon, but all I know is the longer that I've stayed committed to publishing articles, the less I need help coming up with topics to write about. And then when I do need some creative support or something just to jog my memory and kind of get those juices flowing, I have my idea bank. I heard this, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it up in front of me, but I heard this quote, and it was through James Clear's 321 Thursday weekly newsletter, his email newsletter that he sends out every Thursday. Huge advocate for that as well. Make sure you grab that. It's very bite-sized and easy to read, which we're actually going to talk about newsletter format here later in this episode here. But he had this quote in there that stuck with me, and it was really just this, what he was saying was, you're rarely going to have your best idea on a topic the first time you think about it. You're going to have to continually put in mental effort or spend mental calories thinking on a said topic or a project that you're working on to get the best ideas to start coming through. It rarely happens the first time through. And so what I know is that the more that I've spent time just knowing that I've committed and I'm on the hook for this weekly entry that I need to put out, the more that I think about that, I kind of just look at the world a little different, and the best ideas start to percolate up to the top. And that bleeds us perfectly into point number 2. Benefit number 2 here today is you'll start seeing other people's content differently. When you begin writing and publishing your work on a regular basis, you'll begin to have a new perspective to the world around you. This has been my experience for sure. And as a newsletter creator, I read other people's newsletters, or I just call them newsies. It's more fun to say. It sounds a little more exciting. The newsies. So I read other people's newsies in a different way. I'm looking at it through a different lens. And here's a list of the things that I kind of take note of. I'm paying attention to their tone of voice. Are they aiming to be more casual or professional in their delivery? I think about the topics that they continue to write on. I try to, and through that, you're uncovering exactly who they're targeting, who the audience is that they currently have, and the audience that they're trying to build. I think about how they title their entries, and even more importantly, on the email context, their subject lines. How do they hook you as a reader into opening it so that you will read it, right? The length or the depth of the information. Do they go super deep on one very specific thing? Or do they kind of brush across the top of a topic and give you like a high level overview or ideas around something? Like how long is the email and what's the depth of the information for that week's topic? Does it stay consistent from one entry to the next? Or do they cover a wide array of things, or are they hyper specific? I've kind of seen both, but it seems like being specific can really help, but it all depends on what your goals are. So I'm not going to suggest one or the other, at least in today's entry. Some of the other things that I take note of is how they do it, and then also how often it is that they are marketing their own offers, the self-promo, the shameless plugs, all of that stuff. And when they do it, does it come off natural within the context of what they're talking about in that week's newsletter? And is it beneficial to the readers? Or is it kind of this square peg in a round hole, and it's just like they're bashing their readers in the face with like, hey, buy my stuff. Here's this newsletter, it's for free, but now I need you to buy all this other stuff. It's like I'm just looking at how they do the marketing. Like, what are the words they're using? Where are they placing it within their email? And does it seem like it's natural and it makes sense for the readers? I'm going to be talking about that a lot through today, is putting the readers in mind. Think about your subscribers and all the things that you're doing, and you'll see what I'm talking about as we continue to go through these other points. Also, I'm curious too as to how vulnerable are these newsletter operators, the people writing these things and distributing it to their audience? Do they open up about the back end of their business? Do they share their secrets or their struggles? Which is something that builds deeper connection, but it's really, really hard, especially for newer creators, newsletter operators, to kind of share those deep, ugly secrets, because a lot of us are wrestling with some level of imposter syndrome, or we don't want to talk about how much money we're making or not making because we want to come off in a way that I guess fills our ego, but also puts this perception into people's minds that we are further along, that we're credible, that we are some sort of authority in the space we are. So to share that we have our insecurities and that we're maybe not making a whole lot of money, or we have a pretty lousy open rate or not very many subscribers, these are all things that I'm looking at, because I constantly am wrestling with how vulnerable do I be? Like, how should I be with you? What should I share? What should I keep to myself? And so I pay a lot of attention to that, because I ask myself that question a ton. And then the last thing that I look at in this category is, do they monetize their newsletter, and how? Do they have an affiliate program? Do they have referral programs? Do they run paid sponsor like slots in their email, etc.? We talked about earlier, do they promote their own offers, their services or products? Some of these people are making huge money from their newsletters, huge money. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. And that's something that I'm looking forward to be able to do as well. But I want to do it in a way that doesn't detract from the value that you're receiving as a listener or a reader, because that's the most important thing, is just throwing my hat in the ring in creating good relationships with quality people out there that, we can have conversations over shared interests or similar pursuits, things of that nature. That's the most important. That's what is going to ultimately determine whether you not only survive, but thrive with your newsletter business, or just the content portion of the business that you're going after as a one-person business owner, solopreneur. So I look at all of these things, and I'm looking at everybody's stuff differently. I don't just read it as a reader. I'm studying it. And I enjoy the content itself for sure, but I'm also studying it from a different lens as well. And you'll notice, if you've been subscribed and opening the emails that I send every single Monday morning, I regularly change things up in my own approach based on what seems to be working well for others, while staying authentic to my brand and the community of subscribers that we're building. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I have a problem with always feeling like I need to be original or do things my own way. But the whole idea of not reinventing the wheel, doing what works, looking at studying others that have come before you and standing on the shoulders of them, to leverage their learnings, because the trial and error that they've been through is something that you can leverage right away. So with that in mind, I do look at things differently. I'm not just a passive reader. That's a huge benefit. Benefit number 3, the high of hitting publish is very addictive. I'll tell you, it's so true. I was so proud of myself when I released Eminem number 001. And even to this day, on number 046, we're almost at a year. But I started writing. The reason I feel like I could talk about me writing for a year is because I started writing for a few weeks before I actually published the first one. So at week 52, that will officially be a year of hitting send every single week, but I've been writing for the past 52 weeks already. Anyway, the feeling I get when I publish, even to these episodes that are happening more recently, whether it's hitting the publish button on my blog, the schedule button in my email software or ESP, the upload button on my podcast hosting platform, all of that is just downright amazing. You think it feels good when you post something to TikTok or a reel to IG or a nice Twitter thread or something. You think that feels good? Think about these huge long form pieces, especially email newsletters where you're talking directly to your audience with no middleman, no platform or channel that, ultimately has, the control over the situation, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. It feels amazing. I feel this sense of pride and accomplishment every single time. And obviously that's beneficial right there. I mean, that feeling of feeling good. But the reason it made this list and it was worth talking about is, as you know, if you've started your one-person business journey already, the weeks can often feel erratic and even nauseating at some times. There's a lot of decisions to be made and responsibilities that do stack up. And because of this, it's easy to feel really overwhelmed and even get the feeling like all the early years of your business is just not going to ever pay off. I wrestle with those emotions, those damaging like mental frames that I can get into. I wrestle with that. I have to keep myself in check. And my weekly newsletter, and then of course, plus the blog and the podcast and the video versions of all this, but the newsletter itself has been a bedrock of many quick wins that assure me that even in all this chaos that's happening, I'm building something brick by brick over time that I'm proud of. And every single brick that I create by taking ideas and then writing them down, so now there's something there. And then, of course, recording it and then putting it into my platform and then hitting publish, there's something really special about that. And once you start to feel that creator's high, it kind of spurs you into the next entry. What am I going to write about next? I'm so excited to release that. So if it's been a rough week in whatever regard, I always know that I've added at least one more brick to my castle. And one by one, the empire is being built regardless. Looking back now, 46 entries later, I'm damn proud. Even if it's simple, start now, and you'll immediately know firsthand how good it really feels. Benefit number 4, you'll build insanely deep trust with your subscribers. Among the best things that email and email marketing as a whole provides for brands who use it is the fact that you have a direct and private line of communication to your audience. When you have social media followers, for instance, that's one thing. But then when that person gives you their email address, they're signaling that they are interested in hearing more from you through this exclusive communication channel. This is special. And in the email version of this newsletter, I dropped some screenshots of some graphics kind of talking about just really the power of email. So I'm going to kind of brag on just email as a marketing channel as a whole in this point. But I found this, and the source is from Statista. And let's see, Help Llama. I want to make sure I give credit. Help Llama is the website that I pulled this from. But really just it's a pie chart looking at the number of global active users. And in social media camp, we have 2.5 billion active social media users, whereas with email, we have 3.7. So we have, 1.2 billion more email users. And there's some other crazy stats about like the monthly activity and people that are logging in and checking their email. It's crazy. And this was the other stat that I pulled, was that 91% of consumers check their email at least once a day. And that stat comes from Email Monday. So with an email newsletter, not only do you have a direct line of communication, but also the opportunity for creating a really deep connection too. There's a lot of people out there that you can serve via email. Think about how many accounts you see when you're scrolling through a social media feed, which is hard to filter and customize due to the interest-based algorithms, which we don't control. I don't know if you remember, if you're Gen Z, maybe you're a little bit young for this, and I'm in my early 30s, but I really, really remember not that long ago where on IG or any of these social media platforms, your feed was literally just the people that you followed. They didn't really sprinkle in content from accounts that you weren't following. So that's why it was so important, and we've been ingrained, like build up the amount of followers you have on the different social media platforms. Become friends with as many people on Facebook as possible, or MySpace, or I even remember Xanga. I don't know if anybody remembers that. That takes me back to early middle school. Actually, closer to like 5th or 6th grade for me. But the algorithm was like, it just showed you the people that you followed. So that's why it was so important. But now with interest-based algorithms, which TikTok really is kind of the pioneer of this, or actually did it best, and now the other platforms are starting to follow the logic of their algorithm. It's all based on interest. And so they look at your behavior as somebody on the social media platform and what you tend to spend a lot of time watching, what you scroll past quickly, what you're double tapping for the like button for, and then also who you follow. And they are curating interest-based feeds for you. So the algorithm is something that we really can't control. Even beforehand, it was a little bit challenging, but now it's just really, really hard. So imagine being among the few in someone's personal email inbox, because those people, your subscribers, can choose to subscribe or unsubscribe whenever they want to, and to whoever they want. So if you're in somebody's inbox, you should feel special. That's the top of the food chain right there as far as communication channels are concerned. In an email, you can entertain, you can educate, you can survey, you can invite, you can link to resources or offers and more. There's a ton you can do within the medium of email. You can also segment your audience for a more personal, relevant user experience, and even automate certain elements of the process as well. So it's really special that way. This type of customization and control that you have from an email marketing perspective, nothing can compete with it. And all of these truths do put email at the top of the marketing channel food chain by a landslide when it comes to brand awareness, increased engagement, revenue potential, and insane amounts of trust due to the deep personal feel that it can provide. And as we know, trust is the backbone of all relationships, the intimate ones in our lives, all the way down to just the people that we choose to, back in high school, the people that you would choose to sit next to during lunch. You know, who's your posse at the lunch table? It's based on who you trust, who you can relate to. And, so that's incredibly valuable, especially from promoting, marketing your business and building that audience. So if you've ever thought about using email in your business, but you don't know where to start, I am, even at the point of recording this, I am an email marketing freelancer as well. So I do have freelance clients on the side. So I have my creator side of my business, which is what we're doing right here, where I'm building up kind of my own IP, building out kind of just the brand and the growing what I have to offer you through free content, paid offers, things of that nature. But I'm also a freelancer in the email marketing space. So this is very near and dear to my heart. And I chose email from day one in my marketing experience way back, probably 5 years ago or so. And I've been enjoying that. So I obviously know a lot about email. I wouldn't say that I'm the guru and that I could school anybody on email, but I've done a lot of it. I've probably sent hundreds of thousands of emails to millions of people and done a lot of revenue for different companies through my email marketing freelancing. So anyway, I'm just trying to build some context, because I do have a course that I built called Simple Email Marketing that you can take. And what it does is it helps you quickly master the fundamentals without all the fluff. And the lessons in the course do apply to any software that you choose. So if you're like, okay, I really like this email thing, Evan, it sounds kind of good, like whether it's for a newsletter or just, adding kind of that email channel into the marketing arena of my business, consider grabbing that course if you don't really know where to start or what to do. It walks you through it without all the fluff. And so that's available to you. So make sure you go over to evanshank.com and then you can look at the offers tab. Or I'll have a link in the description if we can get that in there for you. That would be super useful. Let's move on. Benefit number 5, you can write however you want. And it took me a while to figure this one out. And I think it's one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves about creating written content is quotes like, I can't write, my grammar sucks, I didn't do well, or I hated my high school writing classes, whatever it may be. But the good news is, just type on the keyboard and you did it. Like, I know, it's like mind blown, right? It really is that simple. But some advice that I have for you is that there is really 3 things that you need to consider when nailing down your email writing style. Is number 1, write how you speak. So me talking into this microphone and recording this for you, is exactly what was going through my head as I was typing the email version, the first draft of all of this. I write it very conversationally and casually, and it helps me just it's easier for me to write because I don't feel like I have to overly edit or filter like what goes from brain through my fingertips into the keyboard, you know? Number two, one of the things to consider, the other thing to consider is write directly to the target audience persona. Write as if you're talking to somebody. So conversationally, how would you address a person if they were inquiring about whatever it is, the topic that it is that you're writing about, as opposed to standing up on some sort of platform or pedestal, speaking to hundreds, if not thousands of people. Write to one specific person, and a lot of people are going to relate. They're going to put themselves, obviously, in the shoes of the person sitting across the table, right? So that really helps a lot too. And then reduce the reading friction anywhere you can. And one great way of doing that is breaking up your paragraphs. You will very rarely, if not ever, see me write some sort of long-winded paragraph inside, especially from the email perspective. You know, on the blog, you can kind of get away with that a little bit more, but we want to reduce the fatigue that it takes for somebody to read your email. We want to make that newsletter really easy to gloss over, because the reality is we kind of glance at what the email is before choosing to actually read word for word, line by line. So breaking up paragraphs, using dots to kind of leave these cliffhangers. These are all things that reduce the reading friction and kind of push people down the page a little bit quicker so they can still get the meat and potatoes of what you're writing about without spending forever to like have you get to the point in their eyes. So forget formality, forget grammar, as long as it makes sense to the reader. The more that the normal everyday human vibe, your representation of that, is present in your writing, the better it's going to do, and the less friction it's going to be for you as you are creating issue after issue, or entry after entry, article after article, email after email, however you want to say that. It helps you produce more because it's more natural to you, and people will feel that. It goes back to the point that we just made a second ago, where it helps with the trust. It builds a depth of relationship because they feel like they're talking to a real person. Benefit number 6, keep on rolling here. The cool thing about an email newsletter is that it's all on your terms. Kind of already talked about this a little bit, but email newsletters have no rules. I mean, there is email etiquette and overall best practices on the technical side, which, like I said, the email fundamentals course that I have for you, it's called Simple Email Marketing, and it's available to you right now. You can say whatever you want, however you want. You can email when you want from wherever in the world that you are to as many people as you want, if they're subscribed, of course. Like, there's no rules. You want to pitch a new product? Do it. You want to give away a holographic Charizard Pokemon card? By all means. You want to send funny gifts with no explanation at noon to brighten up their lunch break? I love that idea. Go for it. Some of the best email newsletters that I follow are the shortest and sweetest ones. My only requirement for you is that you paint accurate expectations for your subscribers so that they don't feel cheated or lied to, because that will kill your reputation and burn bridges rapidly. This is key. If you say you're going to do or not do something, stick to your word. And if you have to make temporary or permanent changes, communicate that to your audience. Give them a heads up, just like you would for a person that you're close to, that you don't want them to think that you're being flaky or that they're feeling lied to. Like, treat each subscriber, treat all the people reading your content as a dear friend that you value, because you do value them, and they need to feel that you do value them. And so painting expectations is critical to that. And I did mention this a little bit earlier, but you can also automate emails too. I've taken certain M&M entries and created evergreen newsletters or drip campaigns as well. So the thing is, you can do this however you want. And so quickly, just so that you're not confused, like, what do you mean evergreen newsletter? This is a concept that I haven't dove too deep into myself. I'm doing it a little bit, but really it's just kind of setting up automations where, for instance, I have a creator freelancer quiz. And if people take this quick, it takes them about 2 minutes. It's completely free. It's powered by JotForm. And they take this and basically it runs your score. And then based on how you score, it tells you whether you're more privy to being a creator and monetizing your one-person business based off of what you sell as a creator, or as a freelancer where the thing that you sell is your services. And so there are some things that make those two business types quite different from each other. And so this kind of helps people it's like just a fun little personality quiz, but in the sense of solopreneurship and kind of figuring out which direction you're more prone to enjoy and thrive in. But anyway, when people take that quiz, it drops them into an email automation where they obviously receive the score of whether they're ranked as a creator or a freelancer, and then just with a high level overview of kind of what that means and the benefits of that. And then for no matter how you rank, I have 4 or 5 emails that you receive over the course of, I think it's like 7 to 10 days. So I space them out a few days in between. And what it's doing is just giving you more information on the key points of a creator business or of a freelancer business. So what I have that set up to do is just run 24/7, 365 in the background. I don't have to touch anything, spend a lot of time writing it on the front end, but that's great. And I don't think that would be specifically considered an evergreen newsletter, but a more specific example would be like if I were to go back through, and I'm planning to do this at some point, but and this is all in the game of just efficiency, leverage, and repurposement, is looking back over the course of the year of all the articles I've written. Maybe I have 20 of them that are really, really good for freelancers. So what I could do is I could set up an evergreen newsletter that essentially is going to send the freelancer M&M entries in an automated fashion, maybe week by week or whatever cadence that I chose, to new subscribers that have opted in specifically for freelancer type of information. And so maybe, down the road, as I segment the audience better and get more intelligent with the automations, what we can do is just, if you're only interested on the freelancing side of stuff, I can send you stuff that's relevant to you, and you won't have to worry about getting content that's creator related. So these are evergreen newsletters that you kind of build it once and you send it over and over again. So the difference between that and what I do now is every single week I take an idea, I write it down, I flesh that out, I turn it into a newsletter, and then obviously all the content repurposement from it. But the point is, nobody can tell you no, and no one can get in between you and your subscribers. If your focus remains on providing the best emails you can to your audience, then that's all that matters. For real, for real. Number 7, keep on rolling. Being wordy will hurt you. And I'll admit, this one is tough for me. I'm looking at it and we're already 30 plus minutes into this episode as it is. But sometimes I struggle to keep things concise. This is how I am. If I'm talking about something I care about or passionate or interested in, I tend to just talk. So with or without my keyboard, I've been told many a time that I'm a little bit long-winded. But with emails specifically, and this is something that I'm working really hard on doing, is if you get overly wordy with your emails, they're going to have lower engagement and even worse, retention. So engagement, it's them like interacting with the email itself, whether it's clicking on things, reading all the way through. And then retention is kind of more so of holding people's attention, which I guess would be more so of the reading it all the way through and just in seeing everything that you had there. Unless you have a loyal following and you've primed your readers' expectations, like we talked about, to account for this, you're going to want to be brief and get to the point. And right now I'm experimenting with my current strategy, which is kindly modeled after Jay Clouse's Creator Science newsletter. I highly recommend Jay Clouse and his Creator Science newsletter if you're on the creator side of the coin. And that's the business model that you're either currently in or striving to create. Check out Jay Clouse, and you'll thank me later. But what he does in his email newsletter that goes out every single week is he just kind of teases a topic with some quick value inside the email, And then there's a button linked to the full article on the blog section of the website. So I've pretty much copied that model just to see how it works so that I can still write something that's long form and not feel like I need to squeeze it all into the email. And some people think this is great for SEO and that you're just getting more site traffic. And that's all true and that's all fine and well. But really for me, I want you to feel a lot of value in the email, but I don't want to make it so long that you see that a couple weeks in a row, like, oh, Evan writes these really long emails. And then you're just kind of not really wanting to read them. Like maybe I have people that I'm subscribed to that I love their thoughts and I love what they share, but the email is so long that when I'm in my email inbox, I'm not ready to spend 15 minutes scrolling through an email inside of like my Gmail inbox or whatever it may be. Context is important. Like when was the last time that you opened an email and were happy to read a 15-minute piece? It's pretty rare, unless you're just like at work and you're just trying to burn time. Like people are trying to get through their inboxes as fast as possible. They're trying to clear out the junk, find the stuff that they want, grab those useful nuggets from your newsletter and then move on. Keep that context in mind. Make it easy by keeping the email interesting and to the point. And this reality has forced me to become a better writer, a concise and impactful writer. Although I still feel like I'm on level 1 out of 100 of this, there's always room to improve. And with that growth mindset, we're always looking at how we can, within the things that we can control in our lives, try to improve that, try to optimize that where it makes sense. And so that is one thing that I've learned is being wordy will hurt you. So how do we frame that into a benefit? The benefit is you kind of learn the hard way if you are overly wordy. And the benefit is it makes you a better writer, which then makes your emails more engaging. Your open rates go up. The subscribers that you get will stick around longer, so the retention is higher. It's all good. Number 8, self-promo is totally fine. I tend to mentally place the email newsletter or just email marketing in general somewhere in the middle of the marketing funnel. So you have to have people's opted in. They have to be subscribed to your newsletter, to your email list in order for you to be able to send to them. Because if not, then that's illegal. But what that means is people are already familiar with you. They've made up their mind and have knowingly opted in to receive extra communications from you. They could have just stopped at following you on Instagram or Twitter, but no, they wanted more. They opted in, baby. So depending on your niche, your audience, your offers, and you may promote more or less than others, but you need to just always, always, always keep your audience's needs top of mind. That's the most important thing. And I don't have this fully dialed in yet. I'm never going to tell you that I have it nailed until maybe I find something that's just magical and works. Then I'll share that with you. You can steal it, and then we all win. But I do have a few things in mind to share with you when it comes to self-promotion. Here's some useful ways that you can promote your offer via email or e-newsletter. You can link it within the body content where it directly relates. Kind of like where I was talking about my simple email course earlier. It made sense with that bullet point that I would share, hey, if you're interested in learning more about email marketing and being able to go from 0 to 1 on just email in general and understanding it, how it works, all of stuff without all of the fluff, so you can just get it going for you and reap the rewards of email marketing in your business. That makes sense that I would let you know about that. This is something that I have for you. It's a course that helps you do all of that. And since you're here reading my stuff, we're at the middle of the funnel. And maybe that sounds a little not disingenuous, but maybe that sounds a little too businessy and less relational sounding when I say funnel. But like we're familiar with each other and you've given me permission to kind of share what I think is useful for you based off of what information you've shared with me. And that we have this budding relationship that we're working on together here. So I try to put out stuff that can help you. And some of my offers are going to help. So you can link that within the body content where it directly relates. Or at the bottom of my email newsletters, I have an offers module that just really separates it from the email body. So at the bottom, it says, whenever you're ready, here are a few ways that I can help. Which, once again, not reinventing the wheel. I've seen a lot of different newsletter operators that have their own products or services that they offer that they monetize. It's kind of usually the the backbone of their business as far as revenue and profits are concerned, they put that down in the footer, or they put it somewhere in its own offers module that makes sure that every single week you're just reminded, hey, these are things that I charge for. Or here's some other free things that I have for you. You can do it however you want, but it is other offers. Or you could do separate promotional emails sent to relevant audience segments. So maybe, as I'm getting ready to release, which I haven't talked about yet on this episode, but I'm getting ready to release this content creation toolbox. And it's a Notion template that helps you go from idea through execution on all sorts of content, whether it's pillar content, like an email newsletter, like a podcast, like YouTube videos, all the way through your micro content, the repurposed versions of like tweets that you're pulling from your newsletter, or reels or TikToks that you're clipping out of a YouTube video. This content creation toolbox is going to help you manage all of that. And it works for small teams. It works for you as an independent creator if you're doing it all by yourself. But it just helps you have one spot inside of Notion, and it's a template that's pre-built with AI modules that help you kind of come up with like highly engaging subject lines, how to come up with titles, how to take some of the content and then turn that into a tweet thread. AI is kind of built in there. There's templates. It's a cool thing. I don't need to ramble on about it. But as I get closer to releasing that, I'll send separate promotional emails to the audience segments that have expressed that that's the type of thing that they'd be interested in. So that's another way that you can promote your offers via email or just in your newsletter. And then, of course, automated email flows triggered by user actions. So it's kind of everything that I was saying before, but now you're pre-building it, you're setting it up, and then you have triggers, behavior triggers that if somebody opts in through this form, or they selected this on some sort of submission form or something, that you take that information and that triggers an automation to start. So I may be speaking gibberish to some of you guys out there, and if that's the case, check out that simple email marketing course. But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, like there's a lot of different ways that you can promote yourself in email or in your newsletter more specifically. Self-promo is totally fine. That is a huge benefit of writing and publishing weekly or consistent, we'll just say consistent email newsletters. Number 9, growing your email list is not easy, especially at first. And so I'm going to come clean, and I was talking about how vulnerable people should be, or like that's something that I look at when I'm reading other people's newsletters. But after 46 weeks of sending weekly email newsletters, I've just now crossed that 200 subscriber threshold, and which would be great for some and almost embarrassing to others. I really thought that it would go quicker than this, honestly, but there are a lot of factors at play. And things that may be slowing down your newsletter growth is not promoting via social media channels, not having a good opt-in proposition or landing page, something that kind of sells the newsletter almost as if it is a product, but it's for free in most cases, especially when you're starting out. You're not charging people for your newsletter unless you have something really, really good for them. But if you're not marketing it in that type of way, and you don't have compelling copy on a landing page or a proposition of like people know exactly what they're going to get and how it benefits them by subscribing to your newsletter, that's going to slow your newsletter growth for sure. Or not clearly defining who it's best suited for. Like for me, it's for one-person businesses, people that are either just looking to continue to grab nuggets of information and insights as they continue to build their own brand, build their own business, people that are within the 9-to-5 working environment. They still have a boss, but they want to transition eventually. Or people that are just, interested in general, but, just kind of like think that it's interesting to see how people are able to monetize either from a freelancing capacity or from a creator capacity. So it's all about the beginning phases of one-person business, helping people along in their journey on the tactical and practical side of the back end of business and the back end of content management and content creation, all the way through just like mental frameworks, mindset. How do we have this growth mindset and looking to develop ourselves as individuals? That's who I'm going after. And I know that sounds really broad. I can continue to refine that over time. But if you don't clearly define who you're kind of aiming after and who it's best suited for, then that's going to stunt your newsletter growth, or not staying within the niche of topics that the reader signed up for. If I sign up to a newsletter that's all about something random, fishing, we'll do fishing because I've been halfway interested in that lately. I caught a couple bluegill on my trip that I just got back from, and I'm pretty proud of myself. They were very, very tiny, but hey, we're doing it. But anyway, fishing. If I signed up to a fishing newsletter and it was just kind of teaching me like the basics of fishing and like what type of hooks or lures to use and the differences between this type of rod and this type of rod and fishing in a pond versus, like saltwater, like a bay area or something like that. And then all of a sudden they start sending me stuff about like dog training. Like that's so far off the topic of why I signed up that I am not probably going to stick around because I'm not interested in that at all. So seems obvious, but a lot of people kind of screw that up in the beginning and they're just talking about like so many random things that it just makes no sense. They think that people just want that like your subscribers just want to hear from you. And it's like, yeah, but within context of like what you guys share, what you have in common. And so for me, it's operating as a one-person business, sharing my findings and encouragements from my perspective to other people that are also in the one-person business journey as well. And then also just not leveraging growth tactics, ads, partner networks, organic social media, all of that stuff. Those are bullet points that may be slowing your newsletter growth. And I will say that it's a slow start from the bottom. And thanks to my family and a couple of close friends, I started my newsletter with 18 subscribers. I pulled it up and I threw a screenshot in the email version of this from ActiveCampaign, which is the software that I currently use. I'm going to be switching over to ConvertKit here very, very soon. Actually, over the next month and a half or so, I'll be migrating over there. But I threw in a screenshot from ActiveCampaign showing when I sent the first M&M Mondays, issue 001, 18 people received it. And I don't have the open rate in front of me, but I think probably 3 people read it. So hooray. But the benefit here, let's look at the benefits from this point, is that you're going to build tolerance, humility, and grit by not giving up. This is going to really help you with the discipline side of newsletter growth. Don't be deterred by the slow growth. And even though, and this is where it really messed with me, is even though Twitter and LinkedIn is littered with these overnight success stories of people that just blew up over 3 to 6 to 12 months, like, going from no subscribers to multiple thousands of subscribers, if not more, it starts to make you think that like, okay, if I do this, my growth is going to be linear with kind of how theirs is. And that's just not true. You have to kind of just consider all of the things I mentioned above and make sure that you're carving out enough time to stay focused on it. Because if you're doing too many things at once, which is such a problem for me, you're not going to be able to really give any of those projects or endeavors the energy that's required to really get it up off the ground. No matter how fast you build or how slow you build, it will be worth it in the end in about 100 different ways. That's why email is so powerful and weekly newsletters is such an effective and amazing communication channel for audience nurturing and audience growth. Number 10, you got to give them something. In a newsletter, you can't just write something for the sake of writing something. You have to give your readers something, some sort of value. So this could be entertainment. It could be an insightful thought. It could be a practical solution or whatever. But do not waste their time by not leaving them with something they'd deem valuable or interesting. You don't have to rock their world by any means. Referring back to number 7, it's not one of those things where you have to make these huge, long pieces that just completely change their perspective on stuff. But you have to give them something, some sort of nugget of information. And as I prefaced earlier, some of my favorite newsletters are the ones that are really, really short. There's this guy, Josh Spector. I just found him recently, and he sends out a daily newsletter, but it's literally like 2 sentences with a link to something insightful or interesting. And so I know his name now pretty well, and like what he does and what he's about and why keeping him in my inbox is important and valuable for me, because he's doing regular communication. But if he was just talking about himself or not doing something that was interesting or valuable for me, I would be like, this dude's emailing way too much. I'm immediately unsubscribing. But I'm going to continue to receive his emails and open them because he gives us something every single time. So again, put yourself in the reader's shoes. What would you want to get out of your newsletter? And the last one for today, number 11. This has been a very long episode, I think the longest so far. But one article turns into 50 pieces of additional content. And this is like one of my favorite parts because it's like magic. It's just absolutely amazing. The art of content repurposing and redistribution is incredible. For me, 90 to 95% of my social media content is resalvaged from something I wrote in an email newsletter or recorded into the podcast version of this. My weekly articles are my pillar content, like I mentioned earlier, and that gets broken down into bite-sized micro pieces that are formatted into tweets, threads, shorts, reels, carousel posts, images, and more. The idea of endless amounts of quality content, if that idea excites you, then boy, oh boy, do I have something great coming your way. It's that Notion template that's really going to help you manage all of that and squeeze the juice out of every single word that you write in your pillar pieces of content. In this context, we're talking email newsletter as that pillar piece. So with a basic content strategy, a newsletter can be nearly every ounce of gasoline that your brand needs to fuel your social content marketing strategy. And unlike number 9, where we were talking about slow growth of the newsletter, you can crank this repurposing whole effort from day one. Episode 1, you can take one piece and turn it into 50 plus pieces of content. And so in conclusion on this lengthy episode, you don't need to become a better writer in order to harness the benefits of a newsletter, but you do need to be willing to stick to your commitments. So if you're going to jump into it, don't go into it with the mindset of, I'm going to try it for 3 months and see what happens, and don't let the whole idea of, I'm going to run out of things to talk about inhibit you from getting started. Because the more time you spend writing things, the more ideas tend to come through, especially if you have a content system in the background, which you'll hear more about in upcoming episodes as I get close to releasing this content creation toolbox inside of Notion. For me, if I hadn't put myself on the hook by publicly committing to releasing weekly entries, I'd have wasted a lot more time learning the lessons that are mentioned here above. So if you're going to have to learn some lessons regardless to get to your dream destination, you might as well learn them quickly. And that's what this episode is dedicated to, is giving you the 11 surprising benefits of writing weekly email newsletters. Consistently sharing value through your writings will propel you toward your upcoming success. And I know you'll get there. Until next time, peace.